Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome all to the March 14th, 2018 Joint Planning and Zoning meeting. Normally, we would do planning first, but this evening we're taking up the Joint Planning and Zoning meeting first, as there's a very short docket that we can dispense with quickly. Please note for the record that all commissioners are present with the exception of Mr. Schexnayder. I'd ask everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can we get staff introductions, please?
Patrice Johnson, Zoning Secretary.
Cody Martin, the attorney for the Planning Commission.
Lance Brock, zoning official.
Eric Poche, parish planner.
Jerome Fournier, Director of Planning and Development.
Sean Chereau, Engineering Review Agency.
And before we get started, the first thing on the agenda of the Planning Commission meeting was the swearing in of the three reaffirmed members, which we'll need to do before we proceed. So I'd like to get a motion to amend the joint meeting to swear in the three members that were reaffirmed recently.
We're going to make a motion to amend the ordinance for swearing.
All right, well, Mr. Furman beat you to it, so second. Moved by Mr. Furman, second by Mr. Dumas. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes. Can we proceed with the swearing in? Cody, is that what you do?
Yeah, let me pull it real quick. I wasn't ready for it yet.
Sorry.
Right.
Oh.
Good point.
No, it's you. Oh, okay. It's four people, actually, not three. My bad.
1, 2,
3, 4.
Not me.
oh yeah.
All right, whoever's a new commissioner can just stand.
And you're going to do them for both planning and zoning?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and do it jointly right here for both meetings. Raise your right hand, repeat after me. I, and then state your name.
I, Maury Bishop,
Do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
to follow the rules and ordinances of Ascension Parish,
to follow the rules and ordinances of Ascension Parish,
the laws of the state of Louisiana,
the laws of the state of
and
Louisiana,
the laws of the United States,
and the laws of the United
and
States,
carrying out my duties
and carrying out my duties
as an official
as an official
appointed to
appointed to
the Planning and Zoning Commissions
the Planning and Zoning Commissions
of Ascension Parish.
of Ascension Parish.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right, congratulations, guys.
Thank you, guys. And I would like to acknowledge that Councilman Satterley, I see him in the back. Thank you for joining us. All right, moving on. The next item on the agenda is the acceptance of the previous minutes. Item 3A is acceptance of the minutes and written decisions of the March 8th, 2017 meeting. Do I have a motion on that?
Motion.
Moved by Mr. Chasson, second by Mr. Christie. All in favor?
Aye.
And any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Item 3B, acceptance of the minutes and written decisions of the May 10th, 2017 meeting. Mr. Chasson, do you have a point of order on
Yeah,
that?
I already spoke with the secretary, so we can move to approve with corrections, and I think she's going to take care of that.
And there was, I think, a typographical error on the identity of the commissioners. There were some commissioners that have been, that were no longer on the commission listed as being present. So with those corrections, you move to approve?
Correct,
All
yes.
right,
So moved.
motion by Mr. Chasson, second. By Mr. Furman, all in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none. Item 3C, acceptance of the minutes and written decisions of the August 14th, 2017 meeting. Have a motion? Moved by Mr. Chasson, second by Mr. Christie. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 4 is the chairman's comments. The chair has no comments tonight. Item number 5, public hearing to recommend approval or denial to the parish council to consider the following on the 5A Silver Oaks PUD revision to developmental agreement. Subject property is located to the south side of Germany Road, approximately 1,500 feet east of Airline Highway in Council District 9, and is currently zoned as a planned unit development, a PUD. The application is on behalf of Ascension Properties, Inc. by Quality Engineering and Surveying, LLC. Mr. Fournier, you want to address this?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'm here to request action by the commission to remove a particular requirement from the plan unit development agreement that was filed and approved by both the commission and the council back when this project first appeared. To let you know what's occurred, In the meantime, I'd like to put this exhibit up. John, if I can get this thing going. Here's the development in, just kind of focus in a little bit. This project, here's Germany Road and here's Airline Highway. The developer was required to put in a right turn lane from Airline Highway into the project and a right turn lane in an easterly direction from Germany Road into the project. One of the other conditions they had was to put in a right turn lane that went from Germany Road onto Airline Highway, all right? In conversations with certain council members, the preference would be is to have them pay their development impact fees, traffic impact fees, to the tune of $338,416, as opposed to building the right turn lane, which might get torn up at a later date when we try to improve the full intersection. What we'd like to do, and this is a site, this is an aerial photograph showing the area. This is the Duplessis Center where the Rouses is located, and you can see the full intersection improvements that are going in an easterly direction onto Airline Highway, where we have a full right turn lane, a through lane, and a left turn lane going into Airline Highway. We would like to improve Germany Road coming into Airline from going in a westerly direction with the same type of improvements. So if we have this developer just build a right turn lane, we'd very likely have to rip it up a little later, and we wouldn't get the full benefits of having that done. So what we'd like to do is have them pay their full development impact fees, as opposed to getting credit off of Germany Road, which is a traffic impact fee road, by the way. I think the cost of that was around $190,000. So we'd remove that condition from them and basically have a full interchange right there and a full intersection. So we'd like the commission to do is just remove that condition off their development agreement, and
Recommend it to the council.
recommend to the council to pull it off. By the way, this presentation was also made to the Transportation Committee, which is composed of certain council members, and it was approved unanimously. Now, the next step is to go before you, and if you agree, we will take it to the full council for their approval. All right?
All right, before we open a public hearing on this, I do want to recognize that Mr. Schexnayder has joined us, and also see Councilman Lawler in the back there. Thank you for joining us. I didn't see you earlier, so I didn't mean to slight you. All right, we'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this. Ms. Patrice, has anyone signed up to speak on this issue? Oh, we have somebody who would like to speak on that. Come forward, sir. And I would remind everybody who's here and wishes to speak on any issue tonight, we do want you to have the opportunity to be heard. However, we can't sit here all night, so there is a 3-minute time limit that will be on the clock in front of me. So, yes, sir, please state your name and you may proceed.
Yes, sir. My name is C.J. Barwa. I live on the property that is directly adjacent to the Silver Oaks development on Germany Road. My concerns with voting this approval, and I have questions, is that right now in the morning, traffic is backed up all the way to my house. If he would put that study back up here of the aerial, I don't know. No, that's the one right there. How does that, I don't know how this,
Here's Germany, here's
all
Airline.
right, do we turn it? Okay. So, sir, the far right where the housing and the pond is, that shaded area. Okay, I can touch. All of this shaded area here is our property. And in the morning and in the evenings, traffic on Germany Road is backed up to right here. The builder had a specific requirement that he was going to put this turn-in lane in before a certificate of occupancy was granted. My concern is, if we have to wait for the parish to do it, I don't know when that time frame is going to happen. Obviously, it probably will not happen before a certificate of occupancies are issued. We will have more traffic on Germany Road. There's no assurances that that intersection will be improved. In the meantime, if we can get a right turn lane, alleviate the traffic, it's a safety condition. When I'm trying to pull out of my driveway in the morning to make a left-hand turn, if he has to add a right lane, then I don't understand why we can't expand further at a later date. So I would ask that it not be removed, and we hold the builder to making improvements to Germany Road before he can have a certificate of occupancy issued on an apartment complex that is going to put hundreds of drivers on the road. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Has anyone else signed up to speak on this issue? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this. Any questions, comments, and/or motion from the commission?
I just asked Mr. Fournier, do you have a time frame that you know of for this improvement on the highway?
I don't have a time frame specifically, but there's discussion with some of the council members is that we want to have this done as soon as we can. There's money that's available to us through the traffic impact fee program, as well as parish money that will be allocated for this construction. My conversations with the Department of Public Works, as well as some of the council members, is that they want to get this done quicker. Most definitely sooner than later. In terms of a timetable, I don't have one right now.
So it's not an approved project as of right now?
I'm sorry?
It's not an approved project as of right now?
Not as yet. I mean, they don't have, we don't have any construction plans for it. Okay.
Mr. Fournier, if we do remove that right turn lane as part of their approval, what safety nets, what guarantees does the gentleman have that everything is going to be done before permits are issued?
Well, basically, they can pull the permits. If the condition is pulled, they will be able to pull permits, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can pull building permits now. They just can't get a certificate of occupancy until, that lane is completed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So they would still not be able to pull a certificate, a CO, until if we remove that condition and added this other condition.
Well, it wouldn't be a condition. We're not asking you to place another condition on the property.
Mm-hmm.
We're asking you to remove the existing condition.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
How far away is the developer at this point from being able to pull the first certificate of occupancy? Where are they at in the development process?
They've just pulled building permits for the construction of the units. I think of the 14, they have 14 buildings that they're placing there. And I think they pulled permits for about the first 6 buildings. Right? So they are underway to construct the project. So they are moving, right?
There's a residential development. And our building more houses. It's 35 houses.
Well, just to clarify and to show the map again, John, if you could put that up there. The gentleman's discussing this issue right here. This is a single-family detached home site development that occurred. This is the apartment buildings that are being constructed. The condition was not placed on the construction of the single-family detached home project. It was placed on the apartments. Right?
And there's been no construction started on the apartments yet?
No, they just pulled the permits on that a couple of weeks ago, on the first 6 or so. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What would be the time frame as to, I'm just curious to when you might expect occupancy there? I see Derek raising his hand.
Mr. Murphy, could you come up?
Mr. Murphy represents the developer on this. So.
All right, Mr. Holmes said he was gonna present tonight, so I'm just here to answer any questions, so I'll answer that. Looking at, we did pull permits probably about 2 weeks ago. You're looking at, you got COs probably on first couple buildings, probably six months, possibly. These are gonna come online over the next, so many, probably over the next year, I would think, maybe even longer than that. They still gotta do all the parking, all the infrastructure, drainage, sewer, all the things we gotta do, detention, maintenance buildings, clubhouse, all the amenities that we have to do in there. The thing that's about this is, we have $38,000 in traffic impact fees. This is an off-site improvement. It would be put in my opinion, probably sooner than with this deal. But you're taking $190,000 or so that could go into full intersection improvements that will give you a left turn, a straight through, and a right turn. And you're taking it and putting it on a right turn is gonna be ripped out because there's an alignment issue. It's not something that can be built on. It's not something that can be extended. It is an alignment issue. That right turn lane will be put in, and that turn lane will be removed with these intersections. This intersection, from my understanding from Jerome and talking to, he talked to the council member, it is an intersection that needs improvement today. I agree. The right turn is not the fix-all, end-all. It was found in our traffic study to be deficient, and that's what the traffic impact fee credits was to fix deficiencies. When we go through that intersection, even though we did not have the true, we weren't the exact cause of the deficiency. In this case, it would be spending the $200,000, and that's why it came to this. It came from the parish. Why are we going to require this building when it's our intent sooner than later to go ahead and fix that intersection? Go ahead and duplicate what's on the other side, because that's what truly is needed. Okay, and so we do have the traffic impact fees, the Move Ascension, and all those funds, and that program is in place. And so why spend that? And it doesn't matter to develop. He's going to put it up and go do it, or he's going to give the money. It doesn't matter to him. He just thinks, just like we do, that this is the best bang for the taxpayer dollars.
Mr. Fournier, you could clarify something for me. How many council members are on the Transportation Committee?
I think there's 7, if I'm not
And it's the
mistaken.
committee, correct me if I'm wrong, is only council members, correct?
Correct.
I mean, there's no other people on that committee other than members, correct? And so what we're being asked today is to make a recommendation to the full council, which they can either adopt or reject.
Correct.
Ultimately, it's their decision, it's not our decision.
Correct.
Would you say from the tenor of the Transportation Committee that it is the will of the council to accept these impact fees, accept the cash as opposed to the improvements so they can move forward quickly with the improvements at the intersection of Germany and Airline Highway?
It is, yes.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to recommend that we remove this obligation from the developer.
We got a motion by Mr. Dumas. Do I have a second by Mr. Christie? All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. That completes the agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
All right, we are going to adjourn the joint meeting, and we will come back in just a few minutes to start the Planning Commission meeting. Thank you. Meeting adjourned. All right, good evening and welcome back. We are now convening the March 14th, 2018 meeting of the Ascension Parish Planning Commission. Please note for the record that all councils or all commissioners are present. If I could get the staff to introduce themselves, please.
Stacy.
Staff introductions. I know Stacy's taking a public comment.
Stacy Webb, Secretary for Planning and Development.
Cody Martin, the attorney for the Planning Commission.
Sean Chereau, Engineering Review Agency.
No, thank you. All right, item number 5 on the agenda is the chairman's comments. The chair has no comments except that I would like to introduce the people from CPEX, particularly Janet Tharp and Lauren Marshall are here today to give us an update on the master land use plan. Yeah, I figured that. I apologize.
Thank you. We really want to do a quick, we have a slideshow that,
Great.
if you put that up for us. We want to just do a quick overview. I know a few months ago I gave y'all kind of the full scope and overview of the project, so we know you have a big agenda. But what I wanted to do today is just give you a check-in where we are and also introduce, make sure that you know who Lauren Marshall is. She works with me at CPEX, and she's kind of the key person who is going to be communicating with you and the public, and she knows everything, so she's a great person to contact. And then Scott Ferganesi is with Ferganesi Associates, and we have partnered a lot on projects, and we're kind of co-leads of this. And the last time we talked, I had mentioned the scenario planning and indicators and all of the kind of analytics that go behind the comprehensive plan. And if you have any questions, when I run through our presentation, he can answer any questions that you have. So in addition to us, we have two other people on the team. We have CSRS, which their folks are going to help us coordinate with the engineering and transportation plans that are going on right now. And then a design firm that works closely with us and who worked on the Gonzales Comprehensive Plan. David Whitley is working with us on this plan. I went over our general process and approach the last time we talked, and basically we're at number one. So we're just doing interviews, doing some individual outreach. We're touring the parish and really getting our feet on the ground and learning more about the parish so we could begin this planning process. So the last 2 days and tomorrow, we're touring all the districts with council members. We've done 5 of them, and we'll do 2 more tomorrow. And then we'll probably try to catch some more of the council members in the next couple weeks and go on some more tours. But it's just amazing to be able to do those one-on-one tours and what we see and understand. It, we could drive around, but we don't really understand what the issues are. So it's been very helpful for us. We are, y'all have got a great GIS database, and we're collecting that and working with the assessor's office and building that background. So we've got that going. We're trying to do a basic land use map, what's on the ground now, and going to be using your GIS to do that. We're looking at the previous plans and background documents. Tomorrow we're meeting with the drainage and transportation consultants to start that coordination, make sure that that whole is all integrated. We've got a stakeholder committee that we're meeting with, and it's still getting set up, and we've spent a lot of time getting a real diverse group as far as all through the parish and with different people with different interests. And we'll be having those first meetings. The stakeholder meetings we're having in April and May, and those are really to kick off the whole process, start getting input. And as I mentioned the last time we talked, the stakeholder committee is real important for us as kind of the first, before we go public with ideas, we go to this committee, which is about 28 people, so that we can make sure that what we're talking about makes sense and really use them as a back and forth as far as getting information. And then probably the most important thing I'm going to say tonight is that the first round of our parish meetings, where we do a huge public outreach process to get people at meetings, are going to be on June 4th, 5th, and 6th. And we'll have them spread throughout the parish from the north to the south. So we will be asking you to help us get people out, and we hope that you will attend one of those at least one. And as we get closer, we'll be giving you materials or emails that you could send out to people. And we want as much outreach as we can, and we'll be really fine-tuning it to make sure we get the word spread throughout the parish. The first thing we're going to do is use all that public input, and then we're also going to have some more meetings in July and August, and we're doing a lot of one-on-one interviews. But we're going to come together by the end of the year, we hope, and have a general policy framework or a vision for the parish of where we want to go, based on the input we receive and the issues we understand, and have that adopted by both the Planning Commission and the City Council. And so that will give us the first step in understanding what the big picture looks like, and then we'll spend the next year putting together the exact policies of how to do that implementation. So that gives us kind of a checking time that we can make sure we get the vision right before we get too far down the process. I do want to offer that it'd be great to interview any of y'all who want to talk to us. So I know we've talked to a couple of you, but if you want to have an interview, if you contact Jerome, and Lauren and I'll come and meet with you. And we can do it over the phone, or we can do it in person. So just let us know. And the kinds of things we ask about is, what do you think are important outcomes? what, any hurdles for the process, big issues, and are there any other people that we need to talk to? Just generally understand the issues, and then what type of development you'd like to see or not see, and what areas need to be protected. And that's all I had tonight. These are the contacts with CPEX, and Scott Fregonetti is also available to talk to at any time. We can give you those contacts if you want more detail about the analytical side of the process. And they are GIS experts and will be helping us put all that analysis together.
Yeah, and I would just add that if there is a desire to learn more about, the scenario modeling and that, I'm more than willing to do a presentation for the group and show you how that's all going to work. I also wanted to say that those meetings, those public workshops that we're going to be doing inform those scenarios. So we try and take the public input and use it to kind of test some of the ideas that we receive from the public. And so that's the idea of the scenario planning, is you don't just come up with one plan and start with, throw those eggs, or the spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks. So that's kind of the plan.
Very good. Does anybody have any questions? All right. Thank y'all for coming and appreciate the update. Sounds like we're off to a good start.
Yeah, we're loving it. Thanks.
Good. Thank you so much. All right. Moving on to number 7 on the agenda is general business. 7A is the swearing in of new planning and zoning commission members. We did that during the joint meeting. 7B, variance request for Shady Oaks RV Park. Staff, do you want to address this quickly?
Yes. Shady Oaks was approved back in December of 2016. The code calls for a 8-inch cement stabilized base with a 1.5-inch asphalt wearing course for the roadway, and the developer owner wants to use a 5-inch aggregate base with a 5-inch concrete driveway. Joey Turo, and he's asking for that variance. And Joey Turo has looked at it and said that he had no problems with it at all. For the longevity, it's going to be a private road, but it would last better anyway, and it's a better roadway. So he doesn't have any problem with it. And they're just asking that you allow them to use that revised road section.
Do I have a motion on that? Motion to grant the variance by Mr. Furman, second by Mr. Dumas. All in favor? Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, moving on to item 8 is the approval or denial of the minutes and written decisions of the February 14, 2018 Planning Commission meeting. Do I have a motion on that? Motion to approve by Mr. Christie, second.
Second.
By Mr. Dumas. All in favor? Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 9 is the consent agenda. There are, looks like 3 items on the consent agenda. 9A is the affidavit of mortgage declaration for Annie T. Rollins, Lot A, 38231 Josh Brown Road in Gonzales. Item 9B is a final plat approval of Gateway Industrial Park, second filing, Phase 1 by CSRS Council District 3. And item 9C is a final plat approval for Bell Savan, Phases 1 and 2A by Quality Engineering and Surveying, LLC, Council District 8. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All right, moved by Mr. Bishop to approve the consent agenda, second by Mr. Dumas. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing motion passes. Moving on to item number 10 is the public hearing to approve or deny the following family partitions. 10A is, and before we move on to this, Mr. Poche, wasn't there one of these removed from the agenda tonight?
Yes, item H.
Item H. All right, so the R.E. Carbo property will be taken off the agenda tonight. That's 10H, and that is due to a noticing problem, correct? Okay. That'll be put on for next month?
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, 10A is the Grant Alexander Estates, Lots 6A, 6B, and 6C, BEI Surveying, LLC. This is in Council District 2. Do we have anybody here to speak on this? Yes, ma'am, come forward.
Tristan Guillory, Ascension Parish residents. Good evening, members, and thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak with you this evening. I come before you to request, on behalf of my family, a waiver to the Ascension Parish Land Development Code 17-4026B, which is in reference to family partitions, for such property that is located on the east side of Highway 941. I purchased this 9-acre tract back in October. with the intent to build a home on, to retain a few acres for myself, and then to donate the remaining acreage to my two daughters, which are here with us tonight. The requested variance would provide for a Guillory family partition of the Grant Alexander estate, which totals 9 acres. I'm requesting to retain Lot 6A, which is approximately 2 acres, and then divide the rest into Lots 6B and 6C, and transfer each of those partitions to my two adult daughters. And upon approval of such request, a private access servitude would be made available for Lots 6B and 6C. I do want to mention to you that in order to obtain financing to build a newly constructed home on my portion of the property that I intend to retain, if the property is not partitioned, I would be required to mortgage in the entire 9 acres. And so I really would not like to do that, because in the event down the road that, after the 3-year residency requirement has been met, and then we would come back to partition you all, I would have to refinance my mortgage. So as a matter of full disclosure, I was not aware of the family partition code, specifically the 3-year residency requirement, until after I purchased the property back in October of 2017 and began working with a surveying firm to separate the property. I do take full responsibility for failing to do the proper research prior to purchasing the property, but I do respectfully ask for your consideration of this waiver so that my children are not adversely affected by my inaction. I feel that partitioning the property would not only benefit me in the construction of my home, but would give them legal title, if you will, to their portions of the property so that they can begin making improvements to the property prior to the construction of their own homes. Thank you, and I'll entertain any questions at this time.
Thank you. Staff, do you have any comments on this?
The only comment, it meets the code with the exception that the ownership requirement has not been met, and as she stated, she hadn't owned it for 3 years. That's the hiccup, I guess you should say.
Well, we'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this matter. Has anyone signed up to speak on this matter? Ms. Stacy? All right, we'll close the public hearing. Any questions? Ma'am, you can stay up here in case anybody has any questions. Any questions or
Mr.
comments?
Chairman, since they're asking for multiple variances technically, shouldn't this be possibly considered by the Board of Adjustments instead? Or do we need
No,
to completely go
any
through us?
variances to the subdivision code is, the planning commission has the authority to grant variances. Board of Adjustments is variances to the zoning code.
Okay.
I move that we approve the family partition.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Mr. Bishop. Do we have a second? Second by Mr.
For discussion purposes, can I ask something?
But I got to get the second. You seconded?
I will. Yeah.
Mr. Second, second by Mr. Furman. Mr. Dumas, yes.
For discussion purposes, so what you need a variance for is the ownership issue, and
Yes.
and you really technically don't have a hardship, which makes it difficult. So the hardship issue that you've expressed is the financing requirement. I don't have an issue with the family partition, and I would and we did this on a prior case that did have a hardship. And what we did was that they had requested 3 lots, just like you did. And what we did was we said, we're going to allow you to do the 2 lots. And when you've completed your 3rd ownership, you can come back and ask for the 3rd lot. I can appreciate the need for the partition for your lot so you can get the financing on your home.
Yes, sir.
But as far as the other 2 are concerned, it's a tough sell from a hardship perspective that I have. So, Mary, I would ask that I would propose an amended motion or ask that you amend the motion to just eliminate the 2 lots in the rear for the children for the time being and just simply create the 1 lot for her so she can have the financing, the rest of it to be subject to review at a later date.
Can we do an amended or substitute motion after a second?
Well, I need a vote on the first motion.
We have to vote on the first.
And I will say before we vote, I was contacted by Councilman Dawson today, whose council district this is, and he told me he was opposed to it. But obviously it's our decision. So we'll take a vote on the first motion to approve as requested with the variance, or with setting aside the 3-year time requirement and giving the full family partition into 3 lots, 6A, 6B, and 6C. All in favor of that motion?
Real quick.
Oh,
just
yeah.
real quick. Are you okay with this, with what Mr. Dumas had suggested? Would that satisfy y'all needs?
Yes, all in all, the preference would be for the first motion.
Okay.
But as a means of last resort, yes, we would be okay with the second motion.
Okay.
So on the first motion that was made by Mr. Bishop, seconded by Mr. Furman, to approve the family partition into 3 lots, all in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition?
Nay.
We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Dumas?
No.
Mr. Furman? Mr. Bishop?
Aye.
I'll vote last. Mr. Christie? Mr. Chasson?
Nay.
Mr. Scheck-Snyder? Sorry.
Nay.
All right, the chair votes nay as well, so the vote is 4-3 against. Do I have another motion?
So I'm going to move that we approve the 1 lot and
6A?
6A, and that the rest will be subject to future subdivision when she complies with the ordinance, and the hardship being in the finance.
Can I ask a point of order on that, though? Because I'm not sure how that would work, because who would be listed as the owner of the because when you do the...
She's going to own
She's
both
gonna
of
still
them.
have
She's going to own both of them.
But you can't do that in a family partition, right? Don't you have to
Have to have it.
designate it, you have to designate it to an heir. You can't own both pieces on a
She could
family
just
partition.
donate to one of her daughters. I mean,
She can donate to one or both of her daughters,
Well,
and
she
they
can
can
do-
own it individually.
Can they have joint ownership?
Yes.
I wouldn't do it myself. I wouldn't do it because you can only do it one time. Each heir can only receive property through the family partition process one time, so I would do it for one daughter, because if you do it to both daughters, then you would be
All right, so
double
do it to
dipping.
one daughter, so the other daughter could have to donate to the other daughter.
Okay.
That's the way you do it. Okay,
So
so,
we have that
And on-
motion by Mr. Dumas. Do I have a second on that?
I'll
motion?
second that.
But
Second
does
by
the
Ms.
plat have to say which daughter it's donated to? We have to get that in the motion, right?
no,
Or-
it just
or
has
on
to
the
be shown
plat.
on the plan.
It just has to be one legal heir. It doesn't matter who it is. It just has to be a child or a parent or grandparent.
But would she have to say that? She would have to say that before we can vote on it, so they know how to draw up the plat.
Well, all you can do is vote on, just say you have to leave the other lot to a legal heir.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Dumas, second by Mr. Scheck-Snyder. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition?
Nay.
Okay. We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Furman?
Yes.
Mr. Bishop?
Yes.
Mr. Christie? Mr. Chasson?
Nay.
Mr. Scheck-Snyder?
Yay.
Chair votes in favor, so the vote is 6-1 in favor of the amended motion by Mr. Dumas to pass.
Thank you,
ma'am.
members.
All right, item 6B is the Trudy Burnett property, lots 1E1, C1, 1E1, C2, and 1E1, C3. Willard J. Quitmont. Mr. Quitmont.
Good evening. Clint Quitmall representing W.J. Quitmall Surveyors, Earls and Associates. Asking for Planning Commission approval on the following family partition. All comments have been addressed, except for the monumentation, which will occur after approval.
Staff?
Yes, it meets the code, and all items have been addressed with the exception of the monumentation.
We'll open a public hearing on this. Ms. Stacy, is anyone signed up to speak?
No.
Close the public hearing on this. Do I have a motion, questions, comments?
Move to approve.
Moved by Mr. Furman to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Christie. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 10C is the Wayne Burton property, lots A3A through A3E. Mr. Quitmont? Looks like you got a big show tonight.
Got a few. Yes, all comments have been addressed except for number 2. Since we're not surveying the lots up on Highway 431, we didn't want to charge the client for monumentation of that. I discussed that with planning, and if they have any further requirement, are they okay with it? But that was the only comment that wasn't addressed.
Yeah, no, it meets the code, and that he's correct in that he isn't surveying next to 431, so he's not required to provide the monumentation there.
All right. We'll open a public hearing on this. Ms. Stacy, is anyone signed up to speak on this? We'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Christie. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bishop. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 10D, excuse me, Judith Duplessis property, lots D1A and D1B. Mr. Quitmont?
Yes, all comments have been addressed, asking for approval.
Staff?
Yes, all comments have been addressed.
Open a public hearing on this, Ms. Stacy. Close the public hearing on this. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
By Mr. Schexnayder, second by Mr. Chasson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 10E, Margaret G. Kernan, property lots 2A1A and 2A1B. Mr. Quimall?
Yes, the only comment that I guess I need to point out is the signature of the adjoiner that the Oak Lane servitude passage is on that has been applied to the plat, so we will have signature for that adjoiner.
Okay. Staff? You want us to approve it subject to signature of the adjoiner?
Yes.
All right. We'll open a public hearing on this. Ms. Stacy? No one signed up. We'll close the public hearing on this. Motion by Mr. Christie to approve subject to the signing of the joinder. By Mr. Christie, second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Furman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 10F is the John LeBlanc property, lots 1 and 2. Are you here for Earls and Associates tonight, Mr. Quimall?
Yes, I'm here
Okay.
for this one, not the next one, though.
Okay.
All right, all comments addressed. Ask for planning commission approval.
Yes, everything's been addressed, correct.
We got to open a public hearing. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Ms. Stacy, has anyone signed up to speak on this? We'll close the public hearing, have the motion now. By Mr. Dumas, second.
Second.
By Mr. Schexnayder, all in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, and note that, for the record, that Mr. Chasson stepped out for a second and did not vote on this matter. Item number
Thank you.
10H has been pulled. Thank you, Mr. Quidmont, which takes us to,
What about 10G?
oh, I'm sorry, 10G, I'm sorry. 10G is the George Savoy property, lots C1 and C2. Mr. Falgood from Earls and
Representing
Associates.
Ms. Kitsy Major on the following family partition, asking the commission for approval. The mobile home is in the process of being removed, and I think that was the only stipulation for approval of the division.
All right.
Yes,
Staff?
that's correct. It's listed on the plat, so it'll be removed before the plat will be signed.
Okay. Ms. Stacy, has anyone signed up to speak on this?
Yes. Cheryl Baker.
All right, we'll open a public hearing. Ms. Baker, please come forward. How many do we have on this?
One.
Just Ms. Baker? Okay. And again, ask everybody, please remember, for anything that you're here to speak about, please confine your time to the 3 minutes.
Okay, my understanding was that there was gonna be several mobile homes. Okay, I don't have any issue with that then.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Baker. All right, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Furman, second by Mr. Dumas. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, now we'll get to 10H, which has been pulled from the agenda for next month. And finally, last but not least, the Ansel P. Tomplay property, lots 5A through 5F, Louisiana Land Surveying. Is anybody here on that? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Everything I know is cleared up, ready to go.
All right. Staff?
Yes, sir. Everything's been taken care of.
We'll open a public hearing on this. Ms. Stacy, has anyone signed up to speak on this? All right, we will close the public hearing. Do I get a motion on this?
Motion to approve.
A motion by Mr. Schexnayder, second by Mr. Dumas. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to item number 11, and I think there are 3 items under item 11 for approval of preliminary plats. Before we get into item number 11, this is a public hearing to approve or deny the Jamestown Crossing Filing 1, Jamestown Crossing Filing 2, and the Oak Grove Townhomes. Items number A and B concerning Jamestown Crossing Filing 1 and Filing 2 have been requested by the developer to be removed and put on the agenda for next month. Do we need to have a motion on that?
No, if the developer pulled it, then.
Yeah, the developer sent a letter today to the zoning department asking that that be pulled. Is anyone here to speak on the Jamestown Crossing subdivisions, Filing 1 or Filing 2?
Yes.
How many do we have?
4.
4. All right, I'll give you, you're here, you're signed up to speak, you're more than welcome. I'll give you the 3 minutes to speak on this tonight. We are not going to hear it tonight. We're not going to make any decisions tonight. It'll be next month. So you can speak tonight and you can come back and speak next month, or you can wait and just speak next month. It's up to you. So if you want to come up, come forward. Who's the first one, Miss Stacy?
Lynn Brown.
Miss Brown, is that you? Okay, come forward, ma'am. And I would again, please remind you of the 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, one thing I'm concerned about, I live in Quail Creek subdivision.
y'all have already approved Reese Place or Reese Lane, whatever it was, across from us. And what I'm seeing is unbridled growth without any consequences for what's going on in this parish. And if I may, I'd like to ask all of you, who of you have flooded? Ever? Have you ever flooded? Okay. 4? Okay. So you know what it feels like. I flooded twice in Metairie, and that's why I moved to Prairieville. And now, you know, I see these pastures that have cows and horses on them that are now having signs up that there's a public hearing. And we liked the combination of the urban and the rural when we moved here right after Hurricane Katrina. And now I'm just amazed at what's going on. You know, there are all these signs up for schools, which we need. And they're finally working on Highway 42. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I really would like to see a little bit more consideration given for the residents who currently live here in this parish. And, you know, that is my main concern. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Who's the next one to speak, Miss?
Judy Gentry.
Miss Judy?
I'm Judy. I live in Rhonda Place, and I've been here 27 years, almost 27 years. I moved here from New Orleans, and I just loved it because it was so peaceful. Well, it has changed, and I am just so disturbed with what's happening here. It's like there's so much growth. There's no infrastructure. There are these slimy, ugly ditches everywhere, and there's talk of sewer system and talk of that and talk of this. But it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And we can't get out of our subdivisions anymore. 42, which I live off of, thank God they're finally doing something with that. It's going to be a mess for a while, but it's okay. But I'm just so disturbed about all these little roads that don't get improved, like 930 over there by that brand-new Prairieville Middle School. That is a disgrace to have roads like that next to a public school with deep ditches that if a bus falls in there, a lot of kids are going to get hurt. And that Henry Road going to Airline Highway, every one of those crossroads, like they were talking about Germany with all the building on Germany Road, there's just too much building. People have protested, and everybody's overridden. It's just, you know, we don't listen to you because we want to build. Somebody's making money off of this. I'm sorry. I just don't trust anything anymore. This is not considering the people who already live here. You have to stop at some point. Somebody told me, oh, well, you know, you can't tell people they can't build. I think there is something you can do about that. I think you can stop at some point. It's absurd. First of all, the infrastructure should have been taken care of before all this building took place. And I think that's all I need to say. I'm just really discouraged with everything. And I've talked to people, you know, many times about it, and I don't really get much satisfaction. You know, it's like, well, we just have to do this. I don't think so. I mean, I think there have to be limits at some point. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Ma'am.
Thank you.
Daniel Henderson.
So I live in the Quill Hollow subdivision, which is right across from there. I just put in a purchase agreement to purchase some land that will also come off on Parker Road, right by there. So, I mean, I just, you know, kind of the same kind of thing. I mean, it's an infrastructure issue and stuff like that. I mean, we're putting in these Baton Rouge-style subdivisions on small little roads with stop signs. So, I mean, I'm coming from a subdivision off of Parker Road, so it's, you know, kind of two-faced to say, well, don't put another subdivision over there. But at the same time, I mean, there's a point of no return on that, you know, where you don't have that. You got the high school that I guess is eventually going to come down there. So there's going to be a lot of traffic going on there. So just ask that when you do look at this ahead of next month, that you do look at those roads as addressed by that. I mean, they are very small, and I think it even stated that fact in there that Parker Road's less than 18 feet. And so as it continues to go and grow on that, you know, instead of having the stop signs and stuff like that, you know, I mean, it's going to be really difficult when you come out on 930 on Daigle Road over by the nursery and stuff like that on that outlet. You're going to need another light over there with the new subdivision that was put over there by Ironwood and stuff like that, and just the additional stuff. It's going to be unusable, that little horseshoe between Rouse's and the going over to Parker Road over onto by the nursery. It's really going to get congested on that, and then every other outlet. And so as looking at that, I mean, just the size and the scope, I mean, the size of the lot, 6,000, 7,000 square feet, really cramming it in there. And then that gets to the other point of it, there's a reason that we don't live in Baton Rouge, because we want to have that little mix of country, get away from it, but have, the convenience of the city right there. And so, especially as we get off of 42 and 44, I just ask that you kind of take that into consideration on there, on what we're actually putting in there and what the fill is going to be.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Jessica Dugway?
Okay, thank you. Has anyone else signed up on either 9A or 9B? All right.
Gentleman out here.
Yes, sir. You wanted to speak on that? Okay, come forward.
I apologize if I repeat something somebody else has said, because I can't hear much of what's going on up here. But I don't disagree with eventually that this property will be developed in some form or another. The infrastructure in this area is extremely poor, has been poor I've lived there since 1985. First of all, I would suggest that it not be done until, number one, 42 is complete. And number two, 930 should be complete because of its narrowness. And the only other objection I've got here is the lot size. These are extremely small lots. They're similar to those that you'll see in Kenner, Metairie, on the West Bank, and I would prefer personally a little higher quality. Just across the road is a subdivision almost adjacent to me that has 70-foot lots. They have nice homes on them, and it would help everybody in the whole area as far as maintaining their values. I appreciate it, and thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am? Clyde Owens.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. All right, we'll move on then to item number 9C, public hearing to approve or deny the following preliminary plat for Oak Grove Townhomes recreation presented by McLean Inc. Is anybody here to speak on that? Yes, Mr. Finnegan.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to preface some of the remarks here.
Yeah.
I'd like to just read into the record that the major subdivision preliminary plat is before the Planning Commission due to recent action by the Ascension Parish Council, sitting as the Ascension Parish Planning Board of Appeals. The Planning Commission first considered approval of the preliminary subdivision plat at its November 8, 2017 meeting, where the project was denied by a 4-2 vote. The applicant subsequently appealed the Planning Commission decision to the Parish Council in its role of a Planning Board of Appeals. The appeal was considered at the February 15, 2018 council meeting, where a motion was approved to refer the matter back to the Planning Commission for consideration. Presented below in your packet was the original staff report for the project which appeared November 8th, Planning Commission packet. The project has not changed since the original hearing, right?
Okay. All right. Does anybody, the developer, do y'all want to say anything on this?
Mr. Chairman, real quick, I'd like to say something before we bring the developer up.
Okay.
If that's all right. I have a big issue with this, and I'd like to get legal involved and ask Mr. Cody, do we have, the issue of the whole appeal process was supposedly the developer did not get a rebuttal period. Do we have to give somebody a rebuttal period? Is there a stated rebuttal period that we follow?
As far as set forth in your ordinances, no, there's no procedure as far as a preliminary plat as far as time period. Now, there were letters that were sent out by staff that did set forth regarding the time periods, the public hearing, the rebuttal period. I reviewed the tape. The developer had every opportunity that everybody else had. But before y'all tonight is not really contesting the actions of the council. They make the decisions, they send it back to y'all, so they're asking y'all to reconsider it. So that's where we're at.
Well, in all honesty, the way I see it is we've already made our decision. And I understand that the council has asked us to reconsider it. We gave a vote. They made their appeal based on a rebuttal. Legal has said that we don't have to necessarily give a rebuttal. So I really, at this point, I'd like to see this, let's just move forward with, we've made our decision.
Are you making a motion?
I would like to make a motion to keep the decision that we made in the November 8th meeting, and let's get this back to the council.
This is set for public hearing, so y'all need to go ahead and go through the process, and then y'all can make any motions y'all want.
Why did they get a whole new crack at it if, I mean, they're gonna come back to us and present everything else again. Nothing has changed on their part. This is the same thing that we have already voted on.
If I may, I think that, I think that legal has already made a determination, and I think that the parish council, in its great wisdom, for whatever reason, decided that they felt that the petitioner should have been given adequate opportunity to rebut the thing and further discuss the motion by the commission that was made at that time. I was not here. I wasn't present, so I don't know. All I can tell you is that I think we've been asked to revisit the matter by the parish council, and I think that it behooves us to move forward and do this in the normal course of business than any other course of business.
And I would also say, you know, we are, the decisions that we make are final to the extent that they're subject to an appeal process. And that appeal process was to a individually appointed appeal board, which oversaw our actions and determined whether they were appropriate or not. The council saw fit to disband that and take it upon their own self, which is not bad. They are the elected officials. Those are the ones who are ultimately accountable to the public. And to the extent, I'm assuming, and I was not at the council hearing where they did this, and I don't know what they said, but I would assume that they found a flaw in the process to the extent that they would like us to reconsider. And to the extent that they appointed us and they are the elected officials, I do think it's our duty to give it reconsideration as directed by the elected officials of our parish. So are you, Cody, are you saying that a motion to, the motion proposed by Mr. Schexnayder would be out of order and we need to move on with the...
Y'all need to go ahead and have a public hearing on it, and then after y'all have public hearings, y'all can have discussions and vote on any motions that y'all want.
All right, very good. I'll give the developer first crack at this if you would like to say something. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, my name is Eric Piazza, represent Danton Bridge Development, the applicant. As you know, this is an application for the Oak Grove Townhomes located at the corner of Highway 42 and 73. This is an application for preliminary plat only. This is not a rezoning request. This application meets all requirements. We're not asking for any variances. We're not asking for any waivers or any exceptions whatsoever. Both the planning staff and CSRS, who's the engineering review agent for the parish, have looked at this application and confirmed we meet all of the requirements. This is a use by right when you have an application that is seeking plat approval when it's not a rezoning. The original meeting, there were two main issues that were brought up by the adjoining residents. Number one was traffic. We certainly understand traffic is bad in the parish. I won't come before you and say that traffic will not increase due to this development. We all know it will. What I can tell you is that the traffic that gets generated from a townhouse project is extremely low. The traffic study showed that basically that there are 48 a.m. peak trips and 56 p.m. peak trips. Under the existing MU2 zoning, retail and office are allowed. And the same traffic study that was submitted to you and submitted to the parish council during the appeal process showed that if we maximize the office density, there could be 261 a.m. trips and 244 p.m. trips. And if we did retail under the maximum density, it would be 177 a.m. trips and 688 p.m. trips.
All right, let me ask you this, Mr. Piazza, I interrupt you. Are you currently zoned to do that?
Yes,
So you could do that without coming to anybody in the parish
absolutely.
for
You could
approval?
pull-
It's already approved?
Correct.
He
You
still
can pull a
has to
permit
do-
for that right now without any type of variance whatsoever.
Thank you. Go on,
And
continue.
if that were the case, that's 5 times the amount of traffic for an office use, and that's 12 times the amount on a retail use. I'm not making light of the traffic situation. I'm simply saying a townhouse development is a very, very low traffic generator, and the existing zoning allows something that's 12 times as bad. This is actually a very good alternative in the traffic situation. The other item is drainage. We hear this in every development, and I can absolutely appreciate drainage concerns. Everyone in this parish and everyone in surrounding parishes are concerned about drainage. We understand it, but the parish requirement is that you cannot increase peak flow drainage off of your project. The drainage study and the engineers of this parish make developers do drainage impact studies and engineer these projects to make sure that what is happening today will not increase once it's developed. And there's a general misconception in the public that when you develop property, it has to drain faster, you fill it in, it has to flood people. That's absolutely not the case. The parish doesn't allow it. We're not going to do it. We have no legal right to do it. And that's directly from the Ascension Parish Development Code, and that's confirmed by the planning staff and CSRS. I'm going to get Mr. Bruce to come up, who's the applicant, to talk a little bit about the existing drainage problem on Willow Lake and the meetings we've been having with the adjoining neighbors as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. Ross Bruce with Danton Bruce Development, the applicant. Through the course of this process, we've held several meetings, what I would consider productive meetings with the neighbors. And from the get-go, it was made apparent to us that there were significant existing drainage issues within the Willow Lake area. We have met 3 times, I believe, with leadership from the neighborhood. Councilman Lawler has been instrumental in acting as somewhat of a mediator through this process, and the end result is that we have asked our engineers to really spend some time looking into why Willow Lake was having drainage issues, and it really boiled down to 2 things. The drainage on the Willow Lake Boulevard, there are just inadequate drainage pipes, and also at Charleston, there is a weir that basically controls the outflow at Willow Lake. There's basically no detention capabilities at Willow Lake currently, and the weir is inadequate. So as a result of that, we are offering to put up $100,000 to, whether it be the HOA, to the parish, whatever body, whatever way we can help get this done. We're willing to stipulate on the approval of this preliminary plat, within 30 days of us closing on the land, we will put up the $100,000 to whatever entity is deemed appropriate to get this work done. I'll be happy to answer any questions afterwards regarding that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, we'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this. Ms. Stacy, how many people do we have signed up to speak on this?
4.
4. All right. Who's the first one?
Dennis Stevens.
Mr. Dennis.
Hey, guys. Y'all saw me before, right? I'm the guy with all the pictures of all the flooding that I passed around to y'all. Okay. Well, when I came here before, I filled out one of these red cards, okay? And today I filled out a green card. Why am I doing it? First of all, y'all listened to us. Y'all stopped it because we were afraid it was going to flood our houses. And in the meantime, Ross Bruce has met with us, and he recognizes that we got a problem. We really have a problem. Now, we've never flooded because the water that came into the lake would actually back up into Mr. Scheck Snyder's property when it got so full. But that's going to go away. But the suggestions that he's had his engineer make, he's calling them suggestions, and they're very good and they're very detailed, is to increase those culverts under that road and improve that weir. That's what we need to happen. and he's willing to put up the funding to do it. What we need the parish to do is step up to the plate and take a hold of this thing. Now, initially the parish said, that's private property, we can't. Then we meet with Mr. Red Parker, and he brings out documents where he has given the parish the right of way on this weir and the property along those culverts. So it's not private property anymore. The parish can help us with this. It's a win-win situation. We just can't get the parish to listen to us. I'm hoping we can. I'm hoping with Mr. Lawler and Mr. Jack Snyder's help, they will listen to us. We know something's going to go there. We feel like if we have a choice, that the townhouses is the best deal, and if we can get the drainage fixed, and they thinking it's 18 months before they have occupancy, and you see the progress on 42, maybe we got a solution. Maybe we got a solution. I'm hoping the parish will consider it. I'm hoping y'all will help me on that. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis.
Thank you.
Richard Email.
Good evening. My name is Richard Email. I live at 38122 Major Oak Alley. I also live on Willow Lake. Like Mr. Dennis, I had a red card last time, and I turned in a green card this time. And that's under the condition that we can get some improvements done to the lake. I hope that you consider what Mr. Bruce is proposing to do, and that y'all would vote in agreement with letting him to help work these problems out. So I'll be short about it, and that's my main concern, is really the drainage. Also the sewer. We understand the sewer is going to go to a pump station, which will go to a treatment plant by the school, and that's good. We do not desire to have a treatment plant for the neighborhood that would dump into our lake. So just want to make that clear too. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Megan Montgomery.
Good evening and thank you. I too filled out the green card. I was kind of conflicted, but because this isn't perfect, of course, we still have traffic concerns. But really kind of the most damning thing would be flooding for my neighbors. The developers have actively sought out our input, and as they mentioned, they volunteered to help finance these drainage improvements, which I think is reasonable. What I'm here today to ask is that you approve it with the contingency of the parish's cooperation with accepting the funds and getting this done. I ask that the funds do not be turned over to the HOA. I don't think we're not qualified engineering project managers. I'm a marketing consultant. Most of us work full-time. So I don't think that would be the most responsible thing to do. But if they can turn the funds over to the parish and the parish engineers can manage that, it's cool with me.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Stephen Decker.
Hi, I've been up here 3 or 4 times, same concerns, flooding. The traffic's not as big of an issue to me as the flooding. I learned some information in our little local meeting last night that we're talking about a 10-year rain event is what they're required to meet. That the events that caused us the most concern actually happened with much less than 8 inches of rain. We're around 6 or less. So I don't think we could stand even a 10-year flood without seeing some more homes in the current conditions that we have now. And they brought up the fact that the other property that they're going to develop is now going to be 6 inches higher or more. It won't allow us any more freeboard for this water to go. So I don't think 8 inches of rain, 4 inches of rain, 5 inches of rain, it's going to flood us, and then it's going to be more houses. It's already been 3. So I also filled out a green card because I believe they're trying to do what it takes to help us fix our problem so the development has the least impact on us. So I'm now for the project because they've shown that they're going to do what it takes to protect us, or at least give us a better chance of fixing the problems that we have. So I support the project now in the current form, as long as the contingency that they do the improvements, or the improvements are made before they start the project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Ms. Stacy? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this. Do we have any questions or comments by the...
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Dumas.
First thing, I'd like to commend the developer for spending quality time and taking advantage of the appeal process to meet with you guys in the community and address the issue. I had the opportunity to meet with the councilman and the community and the developer, and hear the situation. And I hope I don't have to read this into the record, do I? Cody, do I have to read this whole thing? But I'm going to make a motion to approve.
I make a substitute motion.
Hang on, let me finish. I'm finished making my motion.
I think you need to get your motion into the record some kind of way.
Right. So I'm going to make a motion to approve, subject to the following condition of approval. Prior to signing of the final plat by the chairman of the planning commission, the applicant must establish an escrow account for the amount determined by a registered civil engineer not to exceed $100,000 for the sole purpose of adjusting the height of the weir and provide other drainage-related improvements owned or under the control of the Willow Lake subdivision, all filings, Willow Lake Green Garden Home subdivision, all filings, Willow Lake East subdivision, all filings, developments adjacent to the project, funds may only be used by the Willow Lake subdivision, all filings, Willow Lake Garden Home subdivision, all filings, Willow Lake East subdivision, all filing developments to adjust the weir, the height, and provide other drainage-related improvements to adjust the level of the lake to accommodate sufficient storage as may be determined by the registered engineer at the sole discretion and without recourse to the developer or against the developer or Oak Grove Townhouse Development or Ascension Parish. The escrow account must be available for a period not to exceed 24 months from the date of the final plat is executed and recorded. In the event the Willow Lake subdivision, Willow Lake Gardens Home subdivision, all filings, Willow Lake subdivision, all filing developments fail to complete the lowering of the weir within those 24 months period, the developer may close the escrow account, recoup its funds, and shall be relieved of any further obligation. So I want you to know that I think that this is a very reasonable offer by the developer to do that. But I think that you guys that live in that subdivision need to take and make sure that it happens within the next 24 months. It's important to you that it makes happen. So you have to stay on top of everybody that needs to do this work to make sure it happens. And I think it's reasonable that we do that. So with that, this is my motion to approve.
And Mr. Chairman, before you entertain any motions, one of the reasons we're here is for an alleged lack of a rebuttal period. So I would suggest you allow the developer to come up and to give any statements he would after public hearing.
Right.
Yes, sir. I have somebody waving a hand in the back. Yes, sir. You can come forward, sir. Keep brief. Mr. Piazza, I'll give you your rebuttal. I want to give everybody a right to be heard.
Hopefully you'll have an answer. My name is David Bernyard. I live at 43407 Galvez Oaks. I'm nowhere close to this development. But I'm listening to all of this, and you got some suggestions that were made by a developer. Now, all of these changes were not passed by the parish engineers. Nobody is sure that these calculations are correct. Nobody's sure that the solution will fix the problem. And y'all are about to agree to this without anybody official checking the numbers. I can't believe that y'all would make this approval without some kind of official engineering study on the parish's part.
Did you not hear me say it's determined by a civil engineer?
And you're going to put it in the homeowner's responsibility to follow up with that?
I simply said that they need to make sure that people stay on top of it and get it done.
But there's going to be no parish supervision on this. There's nothing official that's going to force this to happen.
It's going to all depend on what the proposed corrections are going to be. If it's something that requires approval by the parish, once they determine it, they're going to have to come to the parish.
And
get
there's
approval.
no guarantee that this is going to be a solution that fixes the problem. That would be my concern.
I think what the
Nobody's
developer-
really addressed that part of
I
this.
think what the developer
deal.
is recognized is that there needs to be a solution to the drainage situation, even though none of the development is going to hamper the current drainage situation, and he's offering to fund that solution up to $100,000. Of course, it's got to be approved by the parish. It's got to be passed by the parish engineers. He's just willing to put his money where his mouth is right now and has made that offer.
And 6 or 8
on the
years
record.
from now, when we found out that this isn't adequate, what's going to happen then? It's all
Well, the
too
parish
late
is
then.
going to determine that within the next 2 years, because that's how long the money's going
I
to be
don't see a
available.
guarantee that it's going to happen that way, though.
Well, if it gets approved, it'll be contingent to that, to what Mr. Dumas just read.
You know, we'll keep looking, but, you know, like I say, this seems to be a little shaky ground here. It was turned down for a reason the first time, and now it looks like everybody wants to rubber stamp it without really looking at what changed in the meantime, which appears to be very little.
I'm just confused as to what part of this discussion you didn't hear, that they've been working with engineers to look at the situation and study the situation, and they've come up with an estimate, and that they have a preliminary plan. And now, mind you, it has to be final engineered. It's got to go through the normal permitting process, and then it's got to get done. And there's a 2-year process 2-year period to get that done, because that's the way it's done. But
And
that
we're
all
talking
takes
about-
money, that all takes time.
And we're talking about making improvements on private land with public funds besides that.
No, this is not
That's what
public
it
money.
sounded like.
This is developer money. This is money put up by the developer
Okay,
into an escrow fund.
I'm gonna stop this. We've had our public hearing, sir. Thank you. We've heard your comments. I would like to give the developer a chance to rebut. The public hearing is closed. We're not reopening the public hearing. It's closed. We had the time for it. The process is to sign up. This is our 4th or 5th public hearing we've had tonight. Mr. Piazza will go ahead with the.
We don't have anything else unless you have any other questions. Thank you.
Okay, so you've had your rebuttal period, sir? Yes. Thank you.
So with that, I
All
make
right,
my
so I have a
motion.
motion by Mr. Dumas. Do I have a second?
I have a
Second by
substitute
Mr.
motion.
Mr. Bishop has seconded it. Do we have can I give a substitute on the, after a second?
He made
I've
the substitute
been
motion
making
earlier before there was a second.
All right.
As the chairman, you decide.
All right, I'll hear the substitute motion on the motion made by Mr. Dumas and seconded by Mr. Bishop.
I'd like to make a substitute motion to deny. It is based on numerous issues, but I'm gonna do some reading for a little bit. I feel like I've taken after a particular councilman for this. They're offering a bunch of drainage improvements, and this is not something that is normal. I think this sets a very bad precedent. I do commend them for trying to be good neighbors. I think that's very admirable. But at this level, if we allow this, then this opens up Pandora's box to the next developer, to if they don't get what they like, they're just going to start trying to find ways to get around it. And that's not what we're here for. I think that now that we found out for dead certain, like they've said, that the parish can go do this, we're going to put it in the parish's hands. And they need to go get this drainage problem fixed. They're aware of it now. The right-of-way has been determined, and they need to get it. And that's going to be on their onus now. The traffic issue. Traffic study shows that it's a 92-home site. Sure, it's a townhome site, but that doesn't trigger a level 2 traffic study. And we just reviewed one that was a 95-home study that triggered a level 2 study. And this doesn't equal out. I know that they say that it's townhomes, that it's not going to be the same. Well, I kind of think that's just not right. Speaking of the traffic studies, traffic study was done by Urban Systems. It's the same study that already produced a document clearly stated in the Ascension Parish Traffic Impact Study Review, USI project number 15062, dated March 2016. And I can easily kind of summarize that although the parish does have rules and guidelines requiring traffic impact studies for new developments, these studies have failed to adequately portray the effect on parish roadways, both individually and collectively. Key phrase is collectively. Without a corresponding mechanism for financing improvements based on the development's effects, funding for transportation improvement programs have been absorbed by overall parish budget. Without revising the parish's traffic impact policies to mitigate the impact of new developments, the roadway systems will be underfinanced, overburdened, and may not support future growth. That's what a study that has been turned in by Urban Systems, who are the ones who did this traffic study for this developer, and they're telling our council and they're telling us that this is not adequate. So therefore, their traffic study is not adequate, in my opinion.
Has the parish council acted on that and changed the traffic impact?
They have not changed it, but they have the information.
It's not our duty to do that.
Well, but the information is still there. They have notified. Furthermore, this is my motion clearly, I move to deny based on acknowledging our master plan, Section B, Section 17-301, Appendix 3, clearly states that for the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of Ascension Parish, we represent the cumulative recommendations of the residents of Ascension Parish as interpreted by the Planning Commission. Interpreted. Section 17-302, the guiding principles. Principle 1, protect the public safety and property values. Area B, the second major public safety issues involve increasing traffic volumes. This is going to increase the traffic volumes, and they're saying it's not going to have an impact. Principle 2, manage growth, and so on and so forth. So based on the health, safety, and welfare, I move to deny this again.
All right, we have a substitute motion by Mr. Schexnayder.
Second.
Second by Mr. Chasson. All in favor of the substitute motion to deny?
Aye.
Any in opposition?
All
right, we'll go roll call vote. Mr. Dumas?
No.
Mr. Furman?
Aye.
Mr. Bishop?
No.
Mr. Christie? No. Mr. Chasson?
Yes.
Mr. Schexnayder?
Yes.
Chair votes against the substitute motion, so the substitute motion fails 4-3. So we go back to the original motion. Original motion by Mr. Dumas. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition?
Nay.
I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Furman?
Nay.
Mr. Bishop?
Yes.
Mr. Christie? Mr. Chasson?
Nay.
Mr. Schexnayder?
Nay.
Chair votes in favor. Motion passes 4-3. All right, moving on to item number 12, old business, site plan approval to lapse without final approval, extension granted 6-month extension, which was granted September 13th, 2017. Update on Family Court Mobile Home Park expansion approved March 8, 2017.
Brian Aguilar with BM Aguilar and Associates. We're just asking for an extension. We've submitted our construction drawings, everything. We've had comments from Drainage Engineering Review Agency, and we've sent comments back to them, and we're awaiting on their approval so we can get started on construction.
And
I think,
go ahead, I'm sorry, you finish.
I think one of the reasons we're here is because the ordinance is kind of skewed. It only gives the mobile home park 6 months to get approval and to complete the construction. We're actually treating the review process as a preliminary plat review process, which is in a regular subdivision. I think it's 2 years. And we've talked to staff about maybe trying to extend that in the ordinance here, so we, can have a little more time to get this project reviewed and completed.
Staff, are y'all satisfied that they're moving this project forward?
Yes, I mean, they're moving forward as fast as they can
right.
with getting their approvals and all of that.
And all the conditions that were put in have been met?
Yes, thus far, yes.
Would a 6-month time frame be adequate, or do you require?
6 is what's on the book right now.
Yeah.
It's what's required. I mean, we'll probably be back here again, to tell you the truth, once we start construction on a normal subdivision is usually about 6 months.
I don't see why you couldn't extend it more. If you wanted to extend it more, I don't see why.
So you have construction plans in place, they're submitted, and you've gotten comments, so you're moving along.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask probably a question I shouldn't ask, but you got your financing, you're ready to roll.
Yes, sir. But I mean, if we got everything stamped tomorrow, could we be done in 6 months?
Why not?
Probably not,
Okay.
so.
How about your health department permit? You got any issues with the health department?
I know Clint Schexnayder and them are working on that, kind of, I guess we're waiting on
Right.
everything to be stamped and approved, so. They said they can only go so far where we're at, so.
Do we have to do we make a motion? Is there a public
Yeah,
hearing
we make a
required?
motion usually.
I just make a motion to give them a 12-month extension.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Dumas, second by Mr. Furman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Guys, we'll see you back here in a year, hopefully, maybe not, you know. Hopefully not. Hopefully you'll be done.
Thank you, guys.
All right, staff report,
Staff has no report.
engineering report.
No report.
Motion.
Motion.
Moved by Mr. Chesson to adjourn, meeting is adjourned. Room cleared out pretty quick.